All right, welcome everyone to Heal Thyself in this tumultuous time. Thank you for taking your time out to stop everything, listen to this show. Today's going to be a really important one because I'm covering something that I would assume that majority of us are experiencing in this time. So at least for the last 3 months and particularly the past week. And then we have a special guest coming in, Kelsey. She's going to really touch on self-love, body love, relationships with food, something all of us can really benefit from, male, female. A lot of good gems coming up. So without further ado, why don't we just get straight to the knowledge bomb? All right, anxiety, right? According to Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting 40 million adults in the US age 18 or older. That's about 18.1% of the population. It's a lot of people, right? So for the symptoms that are required for being diagnosed with anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder, are feelings of fatigue, right? Being restless, difficulty concentrating, your mind going blank. I know you all have went through that one. Irritability, some muscle tension, sleep disturbances. And only one of these needs to be present in children for them to be diagnosed with anxiety. But I know that we've all felt these symptoms before. Some more symptoms to expand on that. I mentioned the restlessness. Usually for me, I know when I'm going through an anxious episode, it's always my legs that's shaking or my foot that's shaking, right? How about a cardiovascular system? You're going to get an increased heart rate. How about digestively? For me, digestively, I'll have bowel changes or nausea or cramps, heartburn, some bloating. And one of the major telltale signs that there's anxiety going on is I'll have shortness. I won't even breathe. I'll actually find myself holding my breath for quite a while. And then I'll have the shortness of breath, like asthma feelings, like the contraction and tightness in the chest, which is really common across the board. Some muscle tension, sweaty palms, right? Then you have not only the anxiety, but you have the irritability attached to it, right? The anger, the impending doom, right? You can't relax, difficulty concentrating, right? Some people will start fixating over and over and over to the point where they have a panic attack. You can have disrupted sleep, insomnia, very common, and then your libido goes down in the dumps. And it can linger, and you may not even know what the inciting factor was. What was your trigger? Right? Because sometimes the trigger is not even clear cut. So then all of a sudden you have these symptoms come on slowly or sometimes rapidly, but either way, the end result is the same. You're having this system-wide change in your physiology, right? So what are some major risk factors for anxiety? Well, we're going to see that chronic stress really lays the foundation for persistent anxiety, right? This chronic over and over, persistent stress that a lot of us Americans live in, right? We have a stress response with inciting factors. And it's chronic, as I mentioned, but when you have these continuous triggers, you develop a maladaptive stress response, meaning that your body is so well equipped to handle a lion coming in the room, so well equipped to handle a cheetah chasing you, you won't outrun it, but so equipped for that. And then when it's persistent and over time and over, and there's not necessarily any threat anymore, but we humans are so good at attaching stories into it, we have this maladaptive stress response where our adrenal glands and our brain aren't on the same page anymore, right? So we're just releasing massive amounts of cortisol in our body, and it's having a long-term effect on every system. So as I mentioned, yes, chronic stress is a major risk factor for the chronic anxiety. And just think about it. You'll have the inciting factor, but the story will be told. My boss was cold to me today. Therefore, I'm worried. Therefore, my job is in jeopardy. Therefore, I'm going to lose my job. Therefore, I can't pay my bills, right? When in the meantime, you don't know the story that you told if it matches up with the truth of what's happening with your boss, right? Your boss may have just had a bad day. So you can understand how anxiety is really, really tied to our mental dialogue that we have with ourselves, that monkey mind, okay? So our resilience towards this is based on a few things, towards stress. The hereditary component is really important to how we handle stress and anxiety as a whole, right? It's estimated the genes contribute about 30 to 50% of the development of anxiety disorder, right? But then the other 50 to 70% are epigenetic factors, right? These environmental factors that change our response to that stress, which thus affect our mood and can bring on anxiety. What's another important factor? Your stress history, right? Your history of childhood stress and traumas. Your capacity to handle stress is going to drop if you experience childhood trauma. And I spoke about transgenerational trauma on episode 39. And I spoke about a specific gene called NR3C1. And this is activated from trauma in pregnant mothers, and it's passed on to the children. And then the child carries this, and then the child has a reduced capacity to handle stress, and thus laying the groundwork for anxiety disorders. When we are anxious, we have a disrupted coordination in various parts of our brain. This is why we always feel disjointed when we have anxiety, right? Because the synchronicity between our brain, the parts of our brain that are talking and are supposed to be wiring and firing together, there's a disjointed communication. And you can see this on neuroimaging, right? We also see what else? A lowered heart rate variability. And this is a phenomenon of variation in the time interval between heartbeats, right? And it's measured by the variation in the beat to beat interval. It's basically an insight of how stressed you are, right? I have the Aura Ring on, and in my Aura Ring, I'll be able to follow through what my heart rate variability is from Monday to Sunday. And I'll see what my numbers are. And it can give a clue into see if you're in sympathetic stress response, right? That's the fight or flight, or the parasympathetic stress response. That's the rest and digest. So sleep devices are really good for this. What you're going to see is also a higher heart rate. So that's going to reduce your heart rate variability, which is sort of how it's going to work, right? With a higher heart rate, that's your body in sympathetic mode, right? There's danger, clear and present danger in front of you. And you're going to get an abnormal release of corticotrophin releasing factors. The brain is going to release this hormone, and it's a super powerful hormone. And what it's telling is the adrenal glands right above your kidneys to release more cortisol in the body and telling your body that, hey, you're in danger. And that's going to keep looping back to the brain, back to the adrenal glands, back to the brain. And all of a sudden, you have a dysregulated brain to adrenal neuroendocrine system. Evolutionarily, the stress is going to be sustained till the threat is removed. But the problem for many of us is the threat can be long gone, but the stories we tell ourselves tells our body that the threat is still there. And that is when we dig ourselves into a hole. That is when we create the environment for persistent stress. And that's when we create the environment for us to suffer from anxiety over and over and over, right? Animals do the best job of handling this. Animals will run away. Like let's say a zebra is running away from a lion. It'll run away, outrun the lion, or the lion gets tired of something, and then you'll see an amazing physiological response in the zebra, right? The zebra will start shaking and breathing really hard. That is the body integrating that trauma, that stress, and releasing it. But we humans, we're so sophisticated and so stubborn that we hold in that stress and we tuck it in and we try to file it and sweep it under the rug. And then that stress comes out as anxiety later, as a disproportionate response to something else in the future. So really the take home for us is going to be paying close attention to what the stories are that are attached to our stress and to our anxiety, because that's what continues perpetuating it through our life. So what are some of my favorite recommendations for anxiety? Man, if you're anxious, you need to train your mind to calm down a bit, right? And I know you heard that before, but first sit. Stop, put down your phone, stop talking to people, just stop, right? There is a key and magic to being with yourself. Sit with your anxiety, right? Because what does anxiety want? It wants more than anything resolution. But nothing outside of you is going to understand how you feel. Therefore, it stands to believe that nothing outside of you is going to give you complete resolution or your answer. Only you are. So again, first and foremost, sit with your feelings, sit without judgment. Then, this is the important part, you need to surrender. You surrender to the situation at hand. We have anxiety because we want control. But here's the thing. Life is not that way. We can't control every situation. We can't control all the things that happen, quote unquote, to us, or better yet, for us. We have full control of who we choose to be in relation to those things. That we do. We've always had that control, forever. So why not practice that option to change how we perceive our situation and who we choose to be? What parts of us are going to come up? So surrender, welcome the anxiety, even thank the anxiety, right? Don't put a could or should or would. Don't put a timeline for the resolution. Say, listen, this is what happens with me. The other day, I was like, I'm anxious. I'm really anxious. Wow, this is bad. Why'd I say bad, right? Why not? Why isn't it good? Why isn't it good for me? Why aren't I grateful that my body can mount a stress response to make me feel in my body when I'm stressed? So I welcomed it. I surrendered to the anxiety and I said, I'm going to welcome you I'm actually going to sit with you, anxiety. I'm going to welcome you for a day, a month, or a year. I don't care how long you're here, but the solution ironically starts when you make that surrender. When you make that claim, that's when it starts. So sit down, surrender, and then all of a sudden, you start to see all of the stories you attach to this inciting threat that may not even be there anymore. And that's when you become really empowered, because then you see you are the teller of your stories. And as a teller of your stories, you can close that book. So then when you see those stories from a bird's eye view, you have so much more control at refocusing and changing your perspective. And for me, the perspective's always been, who am I in relation to the situation at hand? What part of me am I choosing to be? There's no wrong or right in this answer, right? At all. That's all relative. So when you refocus the story you made up, you see something more powerful. You see your creation of what you are being in relation to this. So this is when the fire of anxiety starts tempering. So don't forget those words. Who am I in relation to the situation at hand? That's how you empower yourself. And then you say, I'm going to surrender for however long it is. I'm at peace. And I'm going to listen to the stories that I've told myself about this. And this is how you ascend from anxious states. What else? Go out in nature. You got to get bathed in negative ions. Tell me someone who went on a hike and he's even more angry than they were before they went on the hike, right? Go out in nature. Get those negative ions. We know what science says about the negative ions implication in reducing stress, right? Take off your shoes. Take off your shoes. The same thing as the grounding has the same effect with the negative ions of being in nature and bathed in nature. So if you could do both, then you're doing really good. Movement, go for a walk, go for a run, do yoga, dance. I don't care what it is. Just move that energy, right? You're going to be reducing your cortisol and start releasing those endorphins in your body. Get off your phone. Stay off your phone unless you need it, because the phone is going to be counterproductive to reducing that stress. The phone is going to be counterproductive to you realizing what your stories are. That sustained blue light is going to disrupt your circadian rhythm. And we know that a disrupted circadian rhythm is going to activate a part of your brain that is associated with reduced learning and anxiety. So don't give yourself more anxiety. And of course, that disrupted circadian rhythm is going to affect your sleep. And we know if you ain't sleeping right, your mood ain't right, your hormones ain't right, you're on the precipice for anxiety. Okay, so supplement-wise, this is not medical advice, but I'll give you some of my favorite supplements. Ask your doc about magnesium glycinate. Very easy, very safe, very helpful, right? How about daily adaptogenic herbs and mushrooms? These help the adrenals adapt to environmental stressors. I love holy basil. I love ashwagandha. I love rhodiola. There's so many more. Also check your MTHFR status, right? If you've been suffering with chronic anxiety and you did all these things that I mentioned, but you've been suffering from chronic anxiety, you may have a polymorphism. And this is an important enzyme, MTHFR, that is connected to mood disorders, including anxiety, right? So if you have this polymorphism in the body, this may be the root cause of your anxiety in the first place. So get that tested out. Everyone should. And then your doc may give you some activated B vitamins or SAMe, S-adenosylmethionine. So all these things could be really helpful, but remember, supplements are going to supplement the stuff that I said in the beginning of these interventions. Those interventions are most important, right? So if you're suffering with anxiety, know that there's so many tools that you have, more than you maybe even realize, and you can do so much groundbreaking change if you just listen to your body and stop and surrender and get out in nature and empower yourself. There's my knowledge bomb. All right, everyone, today's special guest is out here from Arizona, Kelsey Heenan. She is the brains behind HIITBURN, which is really the fitness, physical side of overall health. And she has a Daily Kelsey, which is really the mindset part of it. So without further ado, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, all the way from Arizona. So word on the street, and by street, I mean, you just told me, you're moving out here to LA.
I am. I'm very excited.
From Arizona?
Yes.
Okay, and do you prefer LA over Arizona?
I think so. I've never lived in LA. I've lived in Orange County, but I love cities, and I've been out here basically every month for different projects, so it just kind of makes sense.
And you're a busy person. You say you're out here for business meetings already.
Yes.
So you're already putting your roots down before you even move.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and a lot of friends live here, and it's just cool opportunities, so I'm excited.
So you just told me about HIITBURN. I just mentioned about Daily Kelsey. You're sort of emphasizing the importance of the mind and the body, right?
Yeah.
Which is how it should be, because there's a lot of fitness gurus out there that are completely missing that whole mindset thing.
Sure. Yeah. It's so important to have great workout programs and people who understand how to help people improve their fitness and their health through, nutrition plans and things like that. But there's also a huge piece, the mind body connection and understanding that you have a relationship with food and it can be good and it can be complicated. And so it can be complicated for a lot of different reasons. And so helping people understand that and how to improve their relationship with food and exercise in their bodies is what I really love doing because it's often a missing component.
Yeah, and you have a story behind that, which is how I discovered you really through Sean's show, the
Mm,
Model Health Show, and it was a really telling story because it resonated with me. And
mm.
it's interesting that disordered eating, and we'll get into it, is not just for women, which a lot of men may think, but tons and tons of men are suffering with this too.
Eating disorders and disordered eating doesn't discriminate against gender, age, ethnicity. It really can affect anybody and everybody. And so it's an important conversation to have that it's not just one specific type of person that gets impacted.
Yeah, and that was the big surprise behind listening to you on there. So, um, I guess if you don't mind, maybe we could just talk about like what your experience is with it and um, if there's a spectrum of it, right? Because
Mm,
on one side we see really a deep stronghold of disordered eating, and then others we see like glimpses of it.
right.
And maybe we can get into that because it's important for, I'm sure that a lot of these listeners and viewers are suffering with something because there is so much out there.
Right.
Eat this, not that. There's literally posts on Instagram that say, eat this, not
Yeah.
this, do that. So I want to get into all that because I know that you have so much to say about it.
Yeah. Do you want me to share a
Yeah,
little bit about my
yes,
story?
100%.
All right. So, a shortened version, and you feel free to
Hmm.
dig deeper. I'm an open book, but back in college, so around between 2007 and 2009, I was a basketball player. I played at a pretty high level. It was a small school, but we played all the top D1 schools preseason. And so moving across the country was a big deal for me in just a lot of transition, and a lot of people at that age go through a lot of transition. So I moved from Minnesota to California. I was playing basketball at a high level, starting college for the first time. I'm a type A personality, so I tend to be very driven and a perfectionist by nature. And so all of these things kind of came together at once. And I realized, I'm not getting the playing time that I'm wanting. I've always been the best. I want to figure out how I can get better and improve. So I decided to really start working harder in my workouts and improve my nutrition. And over time, I would get more playing time if I really improved those things. So I started putting different rules into place for my nutrition. I started getting in more workouts, doing more runs. And I had the best of intentions where I thought that this was just to help me perform better, but it was also something that helped me feel less anxious because I had a sort of sense of control around my life when a lot of things felt in chaos. So I put these things into place, and very quickly things snowballed where I would allow myself certain foods but not other foods, and then it became certain amounts of food, and eventually I got to the point where I counted every single thing that went into my mouth, every single bite, every single lick of food, and I became really, really restrictive. I lost 30% of my body weight within a few months. I am 5'11" and a naturally more slender person, and so I didn't have any weight to lose. And it got to this point where all my friends were noticing. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, started noticing, and he said, "What's going on? You're not acting like yourself. You're falling asleep at 8 p.m." Just all these things. And I had a couple of freak out moments that really scared me and really made me realize this isn't just me trying to be healthier. There's something going on here. And I eventually got to the point where I had to go to the doctor, get diagnosed, and I went into treatment after that. It was a really scary time because when I went to the doctor told me that my heart rate was so low and that I was so fragile that if I went for a walk, I could go into cardiac arrest.
Mm,
I was 20 years old,
mm.
an athlete. I had always been in tip-top shape, and so that was a really scary thing for me. And a lot of things happened, a lot of different stories where it was
Mhm.
just, oh my goodness, what is happening in my life? I'd always been in control, and I thought I was controlling this thing, but it was controlling me.
Yeah, wow. That's the and really to think that something as really just benign as, okay, yeah, I'm going to just eat a little bit better for my athleticism can turn into something way deeper. And one interesting thing that I heard is that you had all of these opportunities to go, oh, what am I doing? But, and this is when I was listening to your show, I was like, wow, it's interesting because the opportunity's there for you to be like, all right, let me walk away. But you're like, you took it as a moment of like, yeah, I'm kind of proud that, the scale says this, or, my jeans are falling off, which kind of blew me away because we always have these opportunities, but we don't even listen
Yeah.
because it's that deep.
Right. And that's the thing where it's like there's this fine line between being disciplined and disordered. And there's this spectrum that people kind of go back and forth between that can be really challenging to navigate. And especially when it comes to relationship with food and exercise, that can be something that's really challenging. Like that example that you were just giving where I had been restricting my food so much and over-exercising compulsively. One time I got out of the shower in my dorm room and I turned around to dry off and I looked at my back and it was skeletal. I could see every single rib, every single bone in my body. And I had this panic moment where I was like, that is not me. Who is that person? And then in the other side, I was like, you're doing great. And so it was this weird devil on my shoulder, angel on my shoulder battle within my mind where I knew that something was wrong, but then I also was super excited that I was making progress. And so that same moment, I walked out into my room, grabbed my favorite pair of jeans, pulled them up, buttoned them, and they fell off. And I was so scared, but also like, wow, I'm going down a size. And this is something that I never really, like weight loss wasn't necessarily a goal for me. It was just like this weird subconscious thing where it's like, if I get skinnier, then I'm going to be better. And there's no like necessary health correlation, especially as a basketball player. That didn't make sense, but that was what I was trying to do.
And so your sense of self was tied into completely how skinny you were.
Yes, completely. And being disciplined enough to say no to things. And I was, I was with my teammates, my old teammates from, back then. We just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, which was super fun.
Cool.
So this was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's
Thank
cool.
you. And so I was just with a lot of teammates and they, have heard my story over the last couple of years as I've shared more and more. And they're like, I had no idea that you were going through that until, I really went downhill because I was always the healthy one who was choosing the salads. And I got a lot of positive reinforcement for my healthy choices. But really it was this restrictive food rules that I put into place where I could never allow myself to eat the things that they were eating because I had to be disciplined.
And what you said is really, really important because that's what resonates with me. It's a fine line between discipline and a disorder. And when we were talking before we got on air, is back in like around 2006, I was in college, right? And I come from New Jersey, and everyone's got to look good. And at the time, everyone wanted to be really big and muscular, right? That was like, God, that was the thing. Think Jersey Shore.
Yes.
So me and my roommates would always work out, and we'd be so into really what we put in our mouth, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it wasn't nutritive food. It was just like macros, counting macros. So as long as I hit the macros, so I was telling you that I had this book, and it had calorie, fats, protein, saturated fat, sodium, and it was like an anchor to my life. And I can't imagine how deep it goes for people who go down that spectrum.
Totally.
Right.
It's so interesting. And I'm so happy that you're sharing that because I know a lot of people live in that space. And now it's probably MyFitnessPal, where instead of a notebook, they're counting every single thing that they're eating. And I understand that understanding nutrients is super important and understanding, what is in food to be a healthy person is really important. But there's this wave where it just becomes really obsessive and is really challenging for people to overcome mentally. And that then, crosses that line of, okay, I'm trying to be healthy, but I then hate myself if I go over my macros by 3% or whatever it is. So it's challenging.
And it's wild because it totally reduces what food is.
Yes.
into literally for however it works with somebody. Someone may be like, this makes me fat, this doesn't. For me, it was like, will it take away from me being lean and cut?
Mm,
Yes or no? Like,
yeah.
does it makes you fat, basically? And literally everything. And it hit the peak when I remember we were all hanging out and we were making drinks, and I literally counted the calories of like a little bit of vodka. I measured the vodka and I put it in there, and I said, "What am I doing?" I
Yeah.
go, "This is kind of weird behavior," but it still didn't go away
Mm-hmm.
until I remember that it really got into my head when I was talking to this waiter, and I was literally trying to find out everything that goes into whatever was being cooked, so I can calculate in my head how much oil they used.
Mm,
Therefore, I would know how many calories, whatever, because I knew I was
right.
already in it already. So I was doing this rough calculation going out to eat, and I said, "Holy shit, this is not a way of life."
Yeah.
And that's when it started changing. But
Mm,
people don't have those aha moments all the
right.
time, correct?
No, not at all. And I've worked with so many people who struggle with that. And, I understand the want to, change how you look. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to change how you look and make adjustments to that. But the methods that you choose to do that can impact your mental health, can impact how you view yourself and your confidence. And then it also, it's just a really challenging thing if that becomes an all or nothing mindset. And that's such a gray area for so many people.
So then is the climate in fitness, which I'm not super into, like I'm not on all the fitness pages, is that the climate still? Is it just now using different methods like technology? You said MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
We have Instagram posts that say, stay away from this
Yeah.
completely or you're evil
Right.
and eat this because you'll be a good person. Is that how it is still, the climate?
It's so interesting because there's different camps, right? There's the if it fits your macros camp. There's an intuitive eating camp as well, where intuitive eating basically is the absence of food rules and honoring hunger and fullness and things like that. So it's very opposite in that sense. And so that the intuitive eating community will show a lot of like donuts and things where it's like, this is making my
Yes.
heart happy and I'm choosing this because I can and things like that. And so the other communities will be like, well, then you're completely ignoring nutrients. And then they'll be like, well, you are completely ruining your mental health. And so it's this, okay,
I've
these
seen
things,
that.
these things can coexist and there can be balance created. Everyone's balance is different. And so understanding that it's not wrong to understand nutrients. It's not wrong to honor your body and your preferences. But how do you create that balance? And a lot of people in the intuitive eating community are in this first phase of recovery, and it's like they need to do that and have the complete absence of food rules to be able to get over disordered eating, to be able to completely heal their relationship with food. And how could we fault them for that? And I understand, if someone is struggling with binge eating or obesity or something like that, they could the other camp will say, well, how could you say that nutrients don't matter? Because these people are struggling with this completely. So it's understanding the relevance of all of these things and helping them fit together as an individual.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a version of that in my space, which is
Yeah.
like totally like the health and
Mm-hmm.
nutrients and vitamins and organic, because people completely put themselves in like, okay, I can't touch this
Yes.
because of this. Like
Right.
I read on this blog that, this has this amount of toxins, or this protein bar isn't organic, or this or that. So I push a lot of teaching people, but rules of thumb. Like you have
Yes.
to just remember
Yeah.
that these are the things that you need to follow
Totally.
when you go food shopping. But also, I always say this, like if I'm on the road or in the airport and I'm hungry, I'm going to eat
Yes.
what they have. And unfortunately, most airports don't have fully organic, gluten-free, non-GMO. They don't know. So, and same thing, like I'll go out to eat, and if I'm with my family, I won't even question it.
Mm-hmm.
But that flexibility is really liberating. I can't imagine,
Totally.
because then you're a prisoner.
Completely. And it's like, it could all be with amazing intentions, right? I want to feed my body things that are organic and come from a locally sourced place because I have the best intentions. But then it can also go into more orthorexia, where you put these rules around food. It's either healthy or it's not healthy, kind of like what you were saying with how you were viewing macros before. There's lots of ends of the spectrum and different ways that you might not have a clinical eating disorder, but it goes so much far, like beyond. There's anorexia and bulimia. There are lots of different types of disordered eating.
And I always tell people and remind them, our bodies are so incredible that they can
Hmm.
handle so much. They're so resilient that, one non-organic protein bar at the airport ain't gonna do much.
Yes.
We're talking about every single daily habits, which
Hmm.
is the huge thing to understand and break. When I was listening to your show, also, you talked about intuitive eating, but you also spoke about how, okay, some people might go intuitive eating. That means I'm going to eat pizza every single day.
Right.
But it's not necessarily that, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah, not
listening
at
to your
all.
body.
Absolutely. And a part of that is kind of that first phase where if you have a lot of disordered eating habits and food rules and things like that, having a period of time where you break those habits and overcome those things, if you have some serious issues with that, is really important. And then once you have a strong foundation of understanding that foods don't need to have labels. No food is good or bad or clean or dirty. Food is either it has more nutrients or maybe it has less nutrients or different types of nutrients, but it doesn't need to assign these labels because they have those labels, it often assigns a morality to it. And people will say, if that's a bad food, I eat that food, I'm a bad person. And so whether it's subconscious or not, it's a reality that so many people live with. And so when you're thinking about eating intuitively and then also understanding how to eat mindfully, again a spectrum.
And sort of like, okay, well, I have this freedom, but I'm not going to eat pizza every single day
Right.
because it's just not something that I'm intuitively drawn to anymore. Like
Yes.
maybe I want some broccoli. Maybe I want some really dense nutrients for my body.
Totally. And because people say that, right? If I could eat pizza every day, I would just only eat pizza.
It's not true.
No, it's
No.
like try it.
Yeah.
Try it, man.
I think
Eat
I did in
pizza.
college.
Yeah, right? After a while, you're going to realize that eating all the pizza all the time, you're probably not going to feel that great.
Mhm.
And it's also going to lose that lust factor.
Mhm.
If you're having it every single day, then it's like, it's just another pizza. It's not that big of a deal. And once you realize that these foods are not that big of a deal, it takes off that pressure. And like you were telling me the story about going to a party and wanting to have 10 cookies instead of 2
Mhm.
because it was your only opportunity to have it. So many people live in that space.
Yeah.
And it's a really freeing feeling when it's like food is not scarce. No food is scarce. You could have it at any time. And when you truly believe that and internalize that, you can be mindful. You can be intuitive. You can make choices for nutrients. You can make choices for your culture, for your
Mhm.
friendships, because this is grandma's Christmas cookie that she makes every single year. And
Mhm.
this is a part of my celebration.
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
many reasons to enjoy food.
Yeah. And that's what happened. The disorder
Mm,
relationship, you have that opportunity to indulge in foods that are not necessarily part of your quote unquote diet,
right.
and you go crazy.
Yeah.
You go crazy. I binged on so many cookies one
Mm,
time and I was like, what have I just done?
dude, for sure.
It's horrible. And allowing that freedom, knowing that like, okay, yeah, sure. Someone wants dessert for after dinner,
Hmm.
great, let's eat it and
Right.
enjoy it. I don't even think anymore. But unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. A lot of people stuck in
Yeah.
that prison. So for you, you were going through this, in college. How did you flow out of it to
Hmm.
where you are and being able to teach people now about this? Because that's a big feat, and I know you're proud, and I know your husband's proud, but it's an amazing thing that you're doing now. But yeah, when did it shift? What happened?
Yeah. So I got so sick that I needed to go to treatment. It was a very essential thing for me. And so I'm very thankful that I had the support of Dennis, who was the one who originally confronted me. And then my parents were also very supportive and really urged me to get treatment right away. So I went to treatment at UCSD. They have a family based therapy program. And that was it was the worst, but it was the best, right?
Hmm.
Because it forced me to really start digging into all of these things. And it was amazing because it's family based. So Dennis went with me and my mom went with me. And so it was cool because we would have sessions separately, we would have sessions together. And it allowed me to start working through the things that I needed to work through. And it also gave them tools to be able to help me better because I think a lot of people, and rightfully so, don't necessarily understand how
Yeah.
to help people. And so it's like they want to be an ally, but they don't know what's helpful. So that was a really important experience to start the healing process.
Yeah, and so that was like the catalyst, right? When
Yes.
having the support of your family, because when you left, you now had a boyfriend at the time
Yep.
and a mom who knew how to work with you and
Mm-hmm.
with whatever's going on,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yep.
So how long did it take to really come to a mindset where you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
my relationship is better?
Yeah. So right out of treatment, the process was I don't choose any of my meals. My meals get chosen for me by my mom or Dennis. And so
Wow.
it was a big surrender of the control that I thought I had. And I knew, like, I came to this point where I was like, I want this so badly. And in the sense of I want to hold on to this disorder that I have because it gives me control. But then I also so badly was like, I'm just sick of being sick. I'm sick of feeling this constant anxiety, this stress. I'm sick of hating myself every day.
Mm.
And so in the moments of clarity, I would surrender that and allow them to choose my meals, and I would fight back. I mean, I had many moments. There was one time, but my first meal in treatment, I was there, and in treatment, it was this cohort of girls that were with me. So it was me, I was 21, and there was two 16-year-olds, a 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old that were with me. And the first kind of meeting was our families went out and got a meal for us and brought it back, and we all had to eat together. And they got our biggest fear foods. So for me, it was this giant bowl of pasta. I hadn't eaten pasta in forever, and it was a huge no-no for me. So I started eating, quote unquote eating, and there was some noodles, vegetables, and chicken. And so I started eating little bites of the chicken, little bites of the vegetables. And the therapist said, Dennis, what do you notice Kelsey doing right now? And he said, she's not eating any of the noodles. And so she was like, okay, to my mom, Pat, will you put some, what portion you feel is acceptable for Kelsey to eat, a normal portion for her to eat. So my mom puts a couple scoops on my plate, and I'm just like super pissed and like whatever. And then Dennis runs in and he's like, oh, no. She can eat way more than that. And
Oh,
he
Dennis, yeah.
proceeds to dump the entire plate of pasta onto my dish. And I lost it. I just went wild. I started crying and yelling, like, how could you do this to me? You know I can't eat this. Like, I'm a very calm person. It takes a lot to piss me off. And so to have that type of uncontrollable outburst was so not common for me. And it was humiliating in front of these children that I was with. I'm like, I am the adult here, adult patient here. I should be able to control myself. But it was so interesting, the experience that I went through where I had the same types of reactions as a 9-year-old to food. And that's where it comes in. It's like, it doesn't matter if you are 85 years old or 9 years old. These types of compulsions and anxieties are real for everyone who's experiencing them.
Wow. That's quite the story. Hooray, Dennis. That
Yeah.
was the move right there,
Right?
huh? Yeah, that's when you knew you wanted to marry him, or a little bit later?
I mean, I was really angry at
Maybe you didn't
him.
want to marry him that moment.
Yeah, but it's like in sickness and in health, right? Like
Yes.
that's a true example of that,
Yeah.
where it's like I was so angry with him, but I knew that he was right deep down, and I hated it, but he was, and I ate it.
So now you have this company, right?
Yes.
And your brand.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more. So how we're helping people with this.
Yeah, fast forward through like after treatment, like a year later, I was symptom free. I did a lot of hard work to do that. So eventually, like, a couple years even after that, I was very conscious about not having any sort of food rules. And if something gave me a pang of anxiety, I knew I had to eat it.
Oh,
and so
really?
that was something that I put into place for myself, where it's like, if I saw pizza and it scared me, I'm like, face your fears, girl. Let's get it. And so I would eat it regardless of if I, felt like I needed more nutrients. Like that was part of my healing process. After a couple of years, I was able to learn how to be mindful and not have rules around food. So I could eat donuts if I wanted it, but I could also understand when I needed broccoli.
It's exposure therapy, basically.
Yeah.
Like from it sounds like day one
Yeah.
in the treatment, and then coming out. So you were so in touch with your emotions around food that you literally force yourself to say, oh no, like I can't have this. Damn it, now I have to eat it.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, that was a huge thing for me. allowed me to get to the point where I did not and do not have anxieties around food anymore. I understand my body so well that it's like if I'm hungry, I know that I need to eat. And I often am like, okay, I know that I need some protein and veggies today. I had some pizza last night. My body probably needs some nutrients today. Or gosh, I'm just really feeling like a donut this afternoon. Let's do it. It's understanding your body so well and giving yourself that ultimate permission that really provides a lot of clarity.
And this is what we need to get more in touch with.
Yeah.
Understanding our impulses of what our body wants.
Yeah.
We have lost, and this is what I tell people, and I've actually put up a whole big story. I said, don't listen to me, listen to your body.
Yes.
I did a whole, I put a whole caption, but then at the end I ended it like that because we completely lose our power to different authorities, which are there to guide us.
Yes.
But I don't know your truth. I don't know what your body wants. I don't know how your body's going to react. I'm giving you my rules of thumb. And having that compass is so important.
Totally.
Just not only around food, just literally around life.
Everything.
How does my body feel around this person?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
This situation, right? Because we've been blessed with that sense of intuition. And that I have it tattooed on my wrist for a reason because it's my compass, but it's literally been your compass around food and apparently life because you become so successful with what you're doing. So you follow your intuition in many other ways too, apparently.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool when you allow yourself the space to learn and then the grace to learn along the way as well. So to answer your other question, a few years later, I didn't want to talk about it for a while because I didn't want my identity to be wrapped up in that. So for a few years, I didn't talk about anything. And then I really realized I have a lot to share in the sense that I want to help people feel empowered to be healthy and to understand that fitness can make you feel amazing. Athletics has been such a huge part of my life for my entire life. And it gave me so much confidence when I was younger and shy and couldn't talk to anybody. I knew that through basketball, I could express myself. So utilizing that to help people feel empowered, but then also helping them realize it doesn't have to be this super gnarly all or nothing thing. So I knew that I had a unique voice to share in that and to allow people to step into that for their own lives. And so Dennis and I started HITTBURN, and I joined online fully in 2014, and we did a bunch of different iterations of it, and it's just been growing since then. And then about 2 years ago now, I started the Daily Kelsey, which is my more personal brand where I talk about relationship with food and exercise.
A perfect compliment, right?
Thank
You can't just go into fitness and think, where is the mindset on this? The mindset and the fitness are tied intimately.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, we can have a great physical aesthetic, but we can be a mess,
Totally.
right? Between our ears.
And that's the thing too. I think that a lot of people say, well, I'm not severely underweight or severely overweight, so I don't have an eating disorder. And it's like, maybe you don't have you're not anorexic or you aren't obese, but if the mindset is if you're stressed about everything that you're eating, or if you're extremely anxious about missing a workout, you maybe don't have a clinical eating disorder or exercise disorder, but there's something that needs to be healed in your relationship with food, exercise, and your body. And then there's a whole spectrum of people in that. So it's like your feelings are relevant. Your story is relevant. And your body size isn't always an indicator of what's going on in your head.
Have you, throughout the years, looked to see if there's a true predisposition to this? Or is it because some folks can have a healthy relationship, but also really be like, oh, I missed the gym. I got to go, without being disordered.
Right. So as far as genetic predisposition,
Did
so there's research going on right now, and I actually participated in a study that's currently going on because they're still trying to find more people who are recovered to be able to study. So I got my brain scanned, and it's really interesting just having scans of people who are currently sick with anorexia, what I was sick with, and then recovered. And looking at the differences in the brain, it really does impact. I mean, I cannot tell you how different my thinking is, not just in my relationship with myself and food and everything, but I went to pick up my mom. I was going to school in Orange County, and I tried to pick her up at Long Beach Airport. I got lost for 2 hours. I just could not. I could not get there. Google Maps existed. Let's keep this in mind. I just my mind was just so foggy, and so that research is still being done, but there are a lot of indicators that there could be a genetic predisposition.
Incredible. That's pretty interesting. I would love to actually look more into that. I don't remember learning about a genetic predisposition in school.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna look more into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be
and
really
it's
interesting.
interesting. There could be. I mean, if you look at often the types of people who go through maybe restrictive eating disorders, often it's more of like the type A personality,
Hmm.
people who are driven, like things like that. So it's not always the case, but it's like it could be a factor.
The control portion of it, because some people relinquish their control pretty easy. They're just
Hmm.
like, that's fine, it'll work out.
Right.
Versus like that type
Hmm.
A,
Right.
which is sort of like it's you, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I jump in there, sometimes I jump out, but
Totally.
like I know exactly what it is to be
Yes.
like extra assertive.
Hmm.
Great. So what are your plans now? So what are you gonna do? Any big plans coming up? You gonna write a book? What's going on?
I'd love to write a book. I
Yeah,
think that'd be super fun to
I think
do
it'd be
this year.
great.
Oh, thanks. I would love to do that. So that's definitely in the plans of things that I want to be working on with HITBURN, my fitness company. We love doing challenges. We do 4 challenges a year, and that's something that it's a really powerful experience because it's all online, so I'm not seeing people in their day-to-day journey, but these challenges are a really amazing way to have people all over the world come together and be able to improve their health and fitness, and in a way where it's like they experience so much freedom, where so many programs are so strict and rigid. It's like they can change their bodies,
Yeah,
but then their minds are still
yeah.
a mess. So I love those experiences. And then with the Daily Kelsey, I love just connecting with people. I do some coaching and group coaching and have some ebooks and things like that on that side as well.
Awesome, awesome. I love to hear that. And what you have a website?
Yes. So thedailyKelsey.com is where people can find stuff about my relationship with food and exercise and all that stuff. And then HITBURN, so
Hmm.
HIITBURN.com is where you can find the fitness stuff.
And the Instagram?
Instagram, The Daily Kelsey, and then also HITBURN is for the fitness.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, viewing, go follow it. There's so much value in there. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for enlightening us. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure that more than a few people are going to relate, because I am over here on the other side being like, I get it,
Yeah.
100%. So again, thank you for coming up. We're so excited to have you in LA,
Thank you.
and we'll have you back. Let's say the summer or the fall.
Yes.
You got to be back.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Okay, appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey, for that beautiful interview. I really hope all of you were empowered from that. I learned a few things about relationship to food, and opened myself up about my relation to food in college. So it's interesting to see how many people suffer with a poor relationship with food out there. So in any case, beautiful interview. Next week, got some fire coming. So thank you for tuning in, rating, reviewing, subscribing. Tell everyone you love, tell everyone you care about, tell everyone you don't even like to listen to the show.